Before I start this video, there are a couple things I want to make known. First off, this video is going to be referencing some things I stated in my previous video on Artorias the Abyss Walker and his relationship with Great Grey Wolf Sif, in that we discussed the theme of loyalty, and we are going to be discussing it a little further in this video as well. Secondly, I've been toying with the idea of playing Elden Ring on a live stream. It won't just be a casual playthrough, I was actually toying with the idea of a fist weapons run for the game. Something not too challenging, but enough where I hope it'll be entertaining. And I think it'll also give us some room to discuss lore topics on the fly live. If you want to see something like that, let me know in the comments below. Now, assuming you saw the previous video, let's take a look at the opposite side of the spectrum of loyalty in the world of Elden Ring. The loyal relationships between the Shadows and their respective Empyreans is quite the opposite of what we see in Dark Souls between Artorias and Sif. Now, for starters, shadow-bound beasts, or shadows that I just called them, are loyal beasts to Empyreans. Empyreans, for those who don't know, are demigods who are selected by the Two Fingers to become candidates for godhood.
Let us speak of the past a while. I was once an Empyrean, of the demigods. Only I, Miquella, and Malenia could claim that title. Each of us was chosen by our own Two Fingers, as a candidate to succeed Queen Marika, to become the new god of the coming age, which is when I received Blaidd, in the form of a vassal tailored for an Empyrean. But I would not acquiesce to the Two Fingers. I stole the Rune of Death, slew mine own Empyrean flesh, casting it away. I would not be controlled by that thing. The Two Fingers and I have been cursing each other ever since, and the baleful shadows are their assassins.
The Two Fingers are essentially representatives of the Greater Will, the overall outer god that rules over the Golden Order. It should also be worth noting for those outside the community of souls that shadows are sentient beings and that they can speak and express thought and have their own free will in some sense. I say this because the Two Fingers put in a failsafe, for lack of a better term, on the shadows, but we'll address that at a later point. When the Two Fingers give an Empyrean a shadow, it essentially gives them someone to act out the will of the Empyreans. It is for this reason that they are referred to as family to the Empyrean. For the sake of this video, we will be talking about Queen Marika the Eternal and her shadow / half-brother, Maliketh, and a little bit of Lunar Princess Ranni and her shadow / stepbrother, Blaidd. Both Marika and Ranni are Empyreans. Marika was at one point an Empyrean until she rose to godhood. Ranni was chosen as an Empyrean during Marika's reign along with Miquella and Malenia. The paths of Marika and Ranni are somewhat similar in how they treat their shadow. In the beginning, both relationships seem to thrive, with each shadow rising to the challenge of defending their Empyrean and or furthering their plans. The paths that both Marika and Ranni take to achieve their goals are similar in that they both do whatever it takes to see their plans through. For starters, between both Marika and Maliketh, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, we don't really see an appearance from Maliketh in Marika's story until Marika's conflict with the Glomide Queen. That story will be told for another day, but to sort of give a TLDR, the Glomide Queen was also an Empyrean and came very close to overthrowing Marika. She, along with her godskins, wielded the Black Flame, which had the very power to kill the gods, which is also called Destined Death, something I touched on in another video. Now, it wasn't until Maliketh defeated her, the Glomide Queen, and her godskin people. And to keep in mind, Marika came very, very close to being defeated by the Glomide Queen, so Maliketh, in saving Marika from the Glomide Queen, was nothing short of a miracle. As a result of this fight, Maliketh sealed away Destined Death from the Black Flame, thus causing the gods to truly be immortal. Now, this is where things kind of get interesting. You see, as a result of wielding Destined Death, the other demigods feared Maliketh. We know this from Maliketh's helm. Quote, Maliketh, Queen Marika's loyal half-brother, bore a blade imbued with destined death, and there was not one demigod who did not fear him. Queen Marika would begin to lay down the foundation that would become the Golden Order. Her and her demigod children would obtain some sort of immortality as a result of destined death or the rune of death being tucked away by Malekith.
Oh, death. Become my blade once more.
Fast forward some time, and the fragment of the Rune of Death is stolen by none other than Ranni the Witch, or Lunar Princess Ranni, and her Black Knife assassins. Ranni imbued the knives of the assassins with the fragment she stole from the Rune of Death. From there, the assassins carved out one half-wheel centipede, or as it's also called, the Curse Mark of Death, one half on Ranni and one half on the son of Queen Marika, Godwyn. The item description of the Curse Mark of Death reads, quote, "Curse mark carved into the discarded flesh of Ranni the Witch, also known as the half-wheel wound of the centipede. This curse mark was carved at the moment of death of the first demigod, and should have taken the shape of a circle. However, the two demigods perished at the same time, breaking the curse mark into half-wheels. Ranni was the first of the demigods whose flesh perished, while the Prince of Death perished in soul alone." End quote. The Prince of Death in question was Godwyn the Golden, who also happened to be Marika's son, and in this case, Golden Child. Pun intended, of course. It is also believed that Marika shattered the Elden Ring after this. It was also around this time when Malekith seeks out Deathroot, which is a result of the burial of Godwyn the Golden. In my Fighting Over Nothing video, I briefly talk about how the nature of the world is resetting itself by introducing death back into it. This is one of those ways. The Golden Order thought it would be a better idea to bury Godwyn under the royal capital, but there's an issue. The issue is Deathroot. The description reads, "On the night of the dire plot, the stolen Rune of Death enabled the first death of the demigod. Later, the Rune of Death spread across the lands between through the underground roots of the Great Tree, sprouting in the form of Deathroot. To atone for his sin, Malekith reverted back to his former self prior to becoming Marika's shadow. He became Gurranq once more." Now, there is a quest to find and give the Deathroot in the world to Malekith, and I'm going to play all his dialogue, what happens when you give him all the Deathroot.
Strange. There's something else. But the death yet quenches. Bring more. Put it away. I won't forget. Again. My appetite. My sin. So please. Enough. Why wouldst thou gull me? Why shut up? My thanks tarnished. Death, my sin, should not be touched by the hand of man. I shall grant thee my clause. I must consume more. It is all consumed. Still, I am not sated. Not nearly sated. America! Is this what it is to sin? Will things never be the same again? Tarnished. My thanks for thy long labor.
Did you catch that? He called the theft of the fragment of the Rune of Death his sin. Why? Because he was tasked to protect the Rune of Death and failed. He feels, and maybe even Marika feels, that he was the one who had also had a hand in Godwin's death. Now, it should be worth noting that there are theories out there that suggest Marika wanted the fragment stolen in order for the shattering to take place because it would destroy the Golden Order, which was what Marika wanted all along, once she realized the Golden Order was flawed. But again, that is a conversation for another time, maybe even a little later. The fact of the matter is that Malekith carried his guilt and did everything he could to hunt down and find all of the Death Root, and much like our friend Slave Knight Gale from another previous video, his appetite couldn't be sated. Malekith learned the harsh truth that once you open Pandora's box, it cannot be closed. He even asked Marika, will things never be the same again? Researching for this video, I can't help but feel bad for Malekith and kind of feel his pain, especially when you find out that he is outside at night howling in the direction of the Erd Tree. I feel like it is a howl, but it's a howl of pain, of sadness, and of guilt. Perhaps he's calling out to Marika, hoping that in some way she will answer, like a dog does when their owner is gone. Malekith was tasked with one thing and he failed, and he did everything he could to undo that mistake, but like he said, it was not enough. The worst part is when we read his remembrance, and this does give credence to the theory of Marika wanting the fragment of the Rune of Death stolen. Quote, Malekith was a shadow-bound beast given to his Empyrean. Marika's sole need for her shadow was a vessel to lock away destined death, and even then, she betrayed him. Betrayal means that one party in the relationship did not see the action of hurt coming, and betrayal also has this intention of hurting the other person. But it doesn't matter. Malekith's efforts of trying to stop the spread of Deathroot didn't matter because, aside from not being sated, Deathroot spread so far. I don't think there was anything to be done of it. It's like a disease. Once it's out, it's out. You can't stop it. Even after all else failed, Malekith returned to Far Missoula to continue his duty of protecting the Rune of Death. Now in his mind, I think he finally understood what had happened if it was unleashed. If you think about it, perhaps Malekith grew somewhat arrogant and not fully understanding, or maybe just got to the point where he let his guard down in protecting the Rune of Death. Ranni took advantage of that moment of arrogance or letting the guard down. Regardless of how or why, this led to Malekith vowing to never have it stolen again. When the Tarnish arrived, he is betrayed by this action, much like Sif probably felt when we arrived at Artorias' grave. Nevertheless, like Sif, Malekith vows to protect his thing, the destined death, even making it his blade when he proves we're too much for him.
Tarnished. Why wouldst thou? Why? 'Tis no matter. I hereby vow the destined death shall not be stolen again.
Looking back to the idea of Marika betraying Malekith, I think I know why she did this. And for this, we're going to touch on the relationship between Lunar Princess Rani and her shadow, Blythe. Now, in the interest of time, I won't go too deep into this part of the video. For that, I advise you to go watch Smoketown's Shadowbound video. He does a much better job at summing up everything than I ever could. Lunar Princess Rani wanted to break away from the Two Fingers and the Golden Order. She had no interest in becoming an Empyrean or even a new god for the Greater Will. She even tells us herself during her questline.
Let us speak of the past a while. I was once an Empyrean, of the demigods. Only I, Miquella, and Melania could claim that title. Each of us was chosen by our own Two Fingers, as a candidate to succeed Queen Marika, to become the new god of the coming age, which is when I received Blythe, in the form of a vassal tailored for an Empyrean. But I would not acquiesce to the Two Fingers. I stole the Rune of Death, slew mine own Empyrean flesh, casting it away. I would not be controlled by that thing. The Two Fingers and I have been cursing each other ever since, and the baleful shadows are their assassins.
During this quest, we meet her shadow Blythe and War Counselor Iji. Of course, we eventually meet Sullivan, but he has plans of his own, and his story isn't as important to this as Blythe is. Throughout the quest, Iji warns us that something is not right with Blythe, even goes as far to locking Blythe away in a cell. At some point, whether by our doing or otherwise, Blythe escapes the jail, but there is a problem: the failsafe of the Two Fingers.
Well, my fellow, how may I serve you? As War Counselor? Or as blacksmith? I presume you've spoken with Blythe? Very well. There is something you should know. The Two Fingers gave Blythe to Lady Rani as a faithful follower. Her very shadow, incapable of treachery. But if Lady Rani, as an Empyrean, resists being an instrument of the Two Fingers, the shadow will go mad, transforming from a follower into a horrid curse. But such is his destiny. In such matters, Blythe's own thoughts hold no weight. It pains me so. But he must be neutralized. For Lady Rani's sake.
If Rani were to go against the Two Fingers, Blythe would now go and attack Rani. This is the failsafe that the Two Fingers instilled in the shadows. Iji tells us so and was right to suspect this. Despite how loyal Blythe is, he will inevitably go mad. This is where I think Blythe and Sif are similar in the sense that the two are protecting their companion. Why do I say that? Well, the last time we see Blythe, he is found outside Rani's tower, surrounded by the corpses of Black Knives. Now, we can speculate why the Black Knives were there, but again, this is something for a later video. Blythe was still protecting Rani, even in his state of madness. I think that's why he inevitably attacked us. Does this sound familiar? mind, again, Ronnie's plan to steal the fragment of the Rune of Death, to basically usher in a new age, one of free will, and I'm sorry I didn't mention that earlier, but this was her plan, goes against the Two Fingers. Creating free will goes against everything they stand for because the Golden Order is structured in such a way where it is more or less a class system, and that's why Marika needed something to change. But back to the conversation at hand, Marika knew of this failsafe. She knew that if she had told Malekith anything, he would probably betray her. Now, who's to say the Two Fingers didn't put this failsafe into Malekith himself? Regardless, I don't think any of this would have happened. Ronnie would have never stolen the Rune of Death, Godwyn would have never died, and Marika probably would have never shattered the Elden Ring. Now, we know how manipulative Marika can be. I mean, for heaven's sake, she locked away Mesmer in the Realm of Shadow after she told him to kill the Hornsent, all because she feared his flame. His flame would end the Age of the Golden Order. And she may have been afraid of Malekith's blade as well. If she had given Malekith so much as an inkling, as I said earlier, who's to say that any of this would have happened? Much like Blaidd, no matter how loyal Malekith was to Marika, I don't think it would have mattered. And maybe Malekith would have done all he can to keep his madness at bay. But if Blaidd was any example to follow, it would have happened eventually. I'm not saying Malekith would have killed Marika, or even do whatever he could to protect her despite his madness. Regardless, I think Marika could not trust her most loyal companion, her loyal shadow, to protect her when it mattered most. I think that was all on Marika, though, because up until that point, no one had seen a shadow and their state of madness and how their objective, or in this case, their task, could protect their Empyrean. Up until Blaidd, of course. Blaidd, in the end, protected Ranni. That's all he wanted. He probably wouldn't have never gone into her tower, maybe when he still had a grasp on his mind, but who's to say that it would have eventually withered away if we hadn't shown up? He destroyed anything that came near that tower, and that's probably why he attacked us, to protect Ranni. He probably saw us as a threat, not remembering all that he went through with us. General Radahn's festival, going down to the underground to Nokstella to find the Fingerblade. Either way, we have seen what loyalty means in the world of Elden Ring. Hi, this is Lost Man's Valhalla, the editor, not the speaker. I realized during the editing phase that there's still a little bit things I need to say. I feel like I didn't really do a good job expressing it in the video. First off, like I said, it's a little difficult to say whether or not Blaidd would have betrayed Ranni. I kind of don't think he would have, or if he did, I don't think Ranni would have. I don't think Ranni would have been in too much of trouble, specifically to the fact that she would have seen it coming. Like I said, he was kind of left at the tower, not left at the tower, but he was at the tower when we last see him, right before he attacks us, and he was doing his damnedest to fight back that madness. I think seeing us, like I said, not that he forgot, but it was almost as if the conflict he was having in his mind was overshadowing what was happening in the physical world. So you have him fighting the mental fight of trying to keep back that madness, and then at the same time, he sees us, and it's one of those things that it was kind of lost in translation. I think I genuinely believe. Well, I don't really genuinely believe. It's more of like, I want to believe that he would have been able to hold back his madness, that he would have fought tooth and nail to make sure that Ranni would have never been harmed. I feel like Malekith would have felt the same way. Malekith probably would have done his damnedest to fight back this madness, even though he wouldn't have known what was going on. Because Blaidd surely didn't know, and I don't think anybody was really going to explain to him what was going on. But unfortunately, we can't really go down those paths because, we can't, because it is what it is. But yeah, that's my final thoughts on that. With all that being said, The theme of loyalty always comes up whenever I run through these quests. The Souls games do such a great job showing the cost of loyalty and how it could set up a character for betrayal and heartache. One or both parties give everything they could in service of the other, and in most cases, the other individual, or in this case Ranni and Marika, don't reciprocate. Artorias and Sif, to me, provide the best examples of how loyalty should be. Both of them give everything they could to protect the other. Despite what legend tells us, Artorias and Sif give us a tragic yet wholesome story of two characters who have love and compassion for one another, and in the worlds that are dark and gritty and unrelenting, perhaps a little love and compassion would light the way for us all. Well, that's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this type of content and want to see more of it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next one.